Single mom discovers her billionaire ex is the doctor delivering her baby. What he did next was Mia's breath quickened, a sharp pang shooting through her abdomen like a jagged knife as she refilled the coffee cup of her most loyal customer, Mrs. Jenkins. There was no time to think, no time to panic. But with each stab of pain, reality bore down on her. This was it. It was time for her baby to arrive. In her gut, a wave of anxiety crashed, drowning her hopes of a quiet delivery. What would happen to Danny if she couldn't make ends meet? The bills piled up like dirty dishes in her sink, each one a reminder of her struggles as a waitress slogging through life in the small diner of Willow Creek. Could she really afford to add a new mouth to feed? Ambitions and dreams felt far away, evaporating whenever faced with the weight of financial realities. The familiarity of her tight routine began to crumble. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, but self-reassurance held little power against the storm brewing within. She fumbled with her phone, quickly calling a taxi as panic clawed at her chest. Just as she stepped outside, dread seized her heart. A familiar silhouette emerged from the shadows. Ryan. He strode toward her, the confidence of a man accustomed to power radiating from him. Mia's heart raced, oscillating between disdain and undeniable longing. The man she once loved was now unreachably successful, a billionaire surgeon. He traversed the world she fought so hard to escape. Their eyes locked, a maelstrom of emotions flooding through her: anger, hurt, unresolved tenderness. "Mia?" he breathed, stepping closer. The distance felt both electrifying and suffocating. She had vowed to bury the past, yet here he was, deeper than any wound. Ignoring his presence took all her strength as they shared that fraught space. "Need a ride?" Ryan's voice was cool, but the urgency between them crackled in the brisk night air. "No," she replied, every syllable laced with resolve. She didn't need him, not now. They were at different ends of a needle, and fragile tension pulled taut between them. With barely a nod, she slipped away into the taxi, leaving his bewildered gaze behind. The hospital loomed large as she hurried inside, the sterile scent mixing with her fears. A staff member guided her to labor and delivery, a whirlwind of scrubs and hurried whispers swirling around her. She prepared for what lay ahead, an unfiltered experience she thought she could handle alone. But the moment she saw him, her world tipped on its axis. "Ryan? You're here?" Her voice quaked, disbelief ripe on her lips. The man she once shared dreams with was now poised to usher her into motherhood. "I can help you," he offered, concern lighting his slate-gray eyes. But the ethical shortcuts she heard whispers of a man shaped by ambition, willing to compromise values, clouded her thoughts. The walls that protected her heart began to shift, forming fragile barriers against a tide of conflict. Could she trust him? Trust a man who left her broken? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As contractions seized her body, Mia gripped the baby blanket tightly, heart racing as the emotional distance between them shrank with chaste labor pang. Memories of laughter invaded her mind, but the anger and betrayal sandwiched between lingered like freshly cut scars. "Can I trust you?" she whispered in anguish. She wrestled with answers she didn't have at her fingertips. Would he even understand the weight of the life she'd built without him? Around them, uncertainty resonated like an unrelenting chorus. With every shift in the atmosphere, the stakes rose higher. Memories mingled with new fear and the notion of reconciliation danced on a knife's edge. She had so much to lose. Vulnerability met opportunity, battling for dominance as each surge intensified. They floated in a tension-filled haze, neither willing to let go of the old hurt, yet desperate for a connection. As the delivery room swelled with a fresh life ready to unfold into their world, Mia's heart throbbed with dread. Would love redeem them in the face of her newly unearthed vulnerabilities? In this pivotal moment, standing between the past and the promise of a future, Mia confronted an unresolved truth. The journey ahead loomed darker than the night outside, and she wondered if she could ever truly trust him again. Mia's breaths came in rapid succession, her desperation mirrored in the sterile surroundings. Each contraction demanded her attention, pulling her deeper into the present while blocking out everything else. The hum of machines and muffled voices became a backdrop to the turmoil swirling inside her. Here, in the heart of paradox, she faced her past embodied in Ryan, the man who had walked away, the man who now wore a mask of professionalism that felt both familiar and foreign. As labor pressed on, the emotional mask she had worn for years slipped. Did he even recognize the toll his absence had taken on her? She stole glances at Ryan, his hands' movement fluid and confident as he guided the staff with a practiced ease. Yet beneath his professional exterior was the same man who had once promised her the world. They had built dreams together, only to watch them scatter when life had turned its back. The world she had meticulously crafted alone, building a life for Danny out of love and sheer will, now hung in balance. Did she dare open herself to this man again? Each contraction drew out conflicting desires, the yearning for trust juxtaposed against the instinct to protect herself and her son. There was power in vulnerability, but would he understand that? Mia, Ryan's voice cut through the haze, smooth yet urgent. We need to focus on getting you through this. Look at me. His eyes locked onto hers, an unguarded slate of determination. In that moment, something shifted. The tension between them felt palpable yet strangely charged with potential. Why are you here, Ryan? She found herself asking, not just to clarify but to break the spell of silence tensing the air. I'm here to support you, to make sure you and the baby are safe, he replied, his tone unyielding. Is that really it? She challenged, daring him to delve deeper, to confront their past instead of skirting around it. You left me, Ryan. You pursued your dreams while I drowned in reality. Now you're here, a doctor with everything, while I've been fighting for air. His eyes narrowed, and for an instant, a flicker of vulnerability broke through his composed facade. I was wrong to leave, Mia. I realize that now more than ever. But I'm here now, and I want to help. An avalanche of conflicting feelings coursed through her. How easy it would be to cling to that hope, to trust him again. But hope had a history of betrayal. The birth of her child loomed, emblazoned on her heart like a brand. She shook her head, grounded by the chaos of her mind. You don't understand what I've built. What I've given up to give Danny a chance. I want to understand. Ryan stepped forward, his voice low, almost pleading. Let me in. For you, for him. As yet another contraction seized her body, Mia felt tears prick at her eyes, a raw mix of pain and longing surfacing. Could she sacrifice the walls she had built for the sake of a fleeting possibility? In that pain, a revelation struck. She had navigated life without him, birthed resilience from ashes. Trusting him meant confronting her opinions of worthiness, challenging herself not as the caretaker alone but perhaps as an equal partner in rediscovering dreams lost. In the tumult of that realization, another contraction exploded within her, sharper and more demanding. The nurse rushed in, glancing between Ryan and Mia, sensing the electric current beneath their conflict. Focus, Mia. It's time. With Ryan beside her, poised yet cautious, Mia stood at the crossroads of her past and possible future. The impending arrival of her child was a milestone not just in motherhood but in her own growth. She faced a choice, a leap of faith into the unknown. But fate had its own plans, and just as she braced for the storm, an unfamiliar sound flooded the room, breaking the heavy tension. Mia's resolve faltered. What did it signal? In that monumental instant, the ground beneath her shifted yet again, opening a door she had never considered. As anticipation gripped her, the true weight of her decisions bore down. Was she truly ready to embrace uncharted waters? Accepting that some connections never fully sever? The moment of clarity came amidst chaos, but a shocking turn awaited her, one that could alter everything she hoped to rebuild. What if the past and the present collided in ways she couldn't predict? Would she dare to weave her broken narrative into something beautiful once more? The pulsating rhythm of Mia's heart echoed like a drumbeat in her ears, competing against the newfound sound enveloping the room, a departure from the clinical beeps and whirs of machinery. It was a cry that pierced through the thick tension, a cry that signaled the arrival of life and coaxed Mia's mind away from the storm of memories locked within her. There was little time to reflect as clamors of nurses and doctors quickly swirled around her. This was it. As another contraction seized her body with a bone-deep force, she felt the collaborative surge, both in her body and her spirit. The focus shifted entirely to bringing life into this world, pushing aside the ghosts of yesterday. Amidst the urgency, she forced herself to glance at Ryan. His face, usually composed, now demonstrated a profound intensity, mutating into something that eluded labels. Was it concern? Affection? "You're doing great, Mia. Keep breathing," Ryan urged, his voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. Yet, it felt as though he stood as a spectral reminder of the life that had once filled her with hope, merging back into the rawness of the present moment. Each push became a testament to how fiercely Mia had fought to carve a place for her and her son against tumultuous waves. Shards of anger interspersed with a dizzying sense of power coursed through her. She had come too far, lived too much to let Ryan's presence dictate her emotional landscape. With the final push, her child emerged, a rush of warmth cascading from her heart as the nurses carefully placed the newborn on her chest. Breathless and teetering on the edge of tears, Mia took in the blissful weight nestled within her embrace, the culmination of every trial she'd ever faced. In that heartbeat of silence, all the struggles, all the loneliness, and all the sacrifice melted away. Yet even in this fervent joy, she felt Ryan's watchful gaze intensify. His eyes were alight with admiration, igniting a flicker of something she thought long extinguished. Caught between her elation and hesitance, she mulled over the complications that accompanied trust, feeling the fraying edges of vulnerability tugging fiercely at her resolve. "I want to be a part of this," Ryan articulated, moving closer, his voice captivated by resolve. "I want to be a father. Not just in title but in every meaningful way." The gravity of his words reverberated through her, wrapping around her like a tempest. Did she dare to let him back in? Assuming the responsibility of executing this fragmented narrative now transcended her alone. It would demand him to confront not only his lost dreams but also the responsibility of forging a future alongside her. Mia felt the walls she built. Would she dismantle them further for the sake of a potentially beautiful possibility? What would it take to trust, to rely on someone once deemed unreliable? "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You don't get to choose now." "Why not?" "I want to be here for both of you," he challenged gently, frustration weaving through compassion. Mia's inner turmoil twisted tighter. Courage ignited a flame of hope buried beneath years of built walls, but reality gnawed at the edges of that hope, questioning whether it was a quilt of dreams or a thin veil cloaked in unfulfilled promises. Dan's tiny form settled into her, drawing her focus away from Ryan. How could she untangle the threads that tied the three of them together? A family, past and present entangled, each demanding its own direction. Was she aiming to wean from resentment or continue to shield her heart against love's potential sting? With a surge of instinct, a decision coursed through her like pure adrenaline. Perhaps the only way to navigate the unknown territory ahead was to address it directly. "Let us take this step by step," she said with newfound assertiveness, locking eyes with Ryan. "If we're going to be a we, it starts with not just promises. It demands actions. I'm not afraid to ask for help, but it has to mean more than words." A flicker of understanding lit his face, as if he were welcoming the challenge rather than recoiling from it. In that moment, Mia felt empowered not just as a mother but as an individual who refused to relinquish her stance without due diligence. A choice loomed on the horizon, yet the air around them crackled with uncertainty. As laughter mingled with soft cries in the room, Mia realized the weight of her journey was far from over. What lay ahead would demand not only forgiveness but also unyielding commitment. But even with hopeful determination, the echo of unspoken fears lurked, waiting to turn the momentum of courage into a precarious balance once more. What would it take to transform words into actions when the echoes of their shared past threatened to resurface and disrupt their potential future? The path towards healing was riddled with shadows, and uncertainty loomed ominously as they embarked on this next chapter. The decision rested heavy. Would they embrace the burden of each other's histories and construct a future deserving of hope? Would they thrive together when things inevitably darkened again? Mia nestled Dan closer to her chest, feeling his soft breaths mingling with the staccato rhythm of her heart. In that vulnerable moment, her world shifted. Ryan, now entrusted with a piece of her reality, watched with an intensity that threatened to unravel her. How could she let him in when betrayal lingered like a shadow behind her? Step by step, she reminded herself, a mantra to quell the fraying edges of panic. How did one negotiate a relationship born from unresolved history while standing at the precipice of motherhood? This new life hinged not only on her but on shared choices, decisions that neither of them had faced before. "Can I hold him?" Ryan's voice broke through her contemplation, softer now, cautiously waiting for her permission. Something about that request cracked a door she thought was sealed. Despite the simmering frustrations, Mia hesitated. Was it possible to allow him to be part of this arc of life, even if it was only for a fleeting moment? She carefully transferred Dan into Ryan's arms, her throat tightening as she did. Their son's tiny fingers barely grasped Ryan's thumb. "Oh wow, he's beautiful," Ryan breathed, awe painting his features in a way Mia hadn't seen in years. It was heartbreaking yet uplifting as she watched him embrace that little life. Perhaps it was an indication of what could be. But as pride swelled within her, it was invariably accompanied by despair. Mia shifted her gaze away to compose herself, aware that the foundations of trust felt irrevocably fractured. Could a reconciliation truly emerge from the debris of their past? "You want to be his dad," she noted, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "What does that look like for you?" Ryan straightened, aware of the weight behind her question. "I know I can't change the past, Mia. But I want to start here. I want to be involved, not just offering help but actively participating in his life. I can prove it." "Prove it." The word echoed ominously, ushering forth a torrent of unresolved feelings. What did proof even mean in their context? Promises had slipped through their fingers like sand in the past, and the gravity of his statement ignited a flame of skepticism. "You've said that before," she answered, a bite edging her tone. "This is different. You can't just wish it into existence." Ryan's eyes dimmed slightly, but then he steeled himself. "You're right. Actions are more powerful than words. But I'm asking for the chance to show you I can be a reliable human. We have to rebuild this together because it's not just about us anymore." Her breath caught at the vulnerability in his admission. Could a truth emerge from their fractured history? With each heartbeat pounding inside her chest, Mia weighed the possibility of a partnership in the most challenging phase of her life. "Just remember, I won't give you half measures or empty gestures," she replied, leaning forward with conviction. "This has to be all in or nothing." Ryan nodded, and their shared gaze hovered, tethered by a fragile, hopeful thread. Over the next few days, the delicate dance of parenthood unfolded. The synergetic flow of caring for Dan intermingled with unspoken tensions. Mia resisted the pull to dismiss Ryan outright while grappling with old grudges. They shared late-night diaper changes, laughter over spit-up, and the vulnerability of quiet moments chip by chip. They began to carve pathways anew. Yet lingering doubts clawed at her. Every gesture from Ryan, every attempt at connection felt like a tightrope walk. Would he stay true to this new commitment? Or was it all part of a veneer waiting to crack under pressure? Days passed, and ties slowly but surely began to bind them closer, a tentative warmth mingled with fear. Yet right when things seemed to align, an unexpected phone call shattered the fragile equilibrium they had started to construct. The sound of the ringing phone sent a jolt through her. Glancing at the screen, Mia slowly raised it to her ear, and suddenly, a voice from the past emerged uninvited, intrusive, and relentless. "Mia, it's time we talk." The decision loomed ahead, pushing Mia back to the edge of uncertainty. Could she confront the buried ghosts from her history while navigating her evolving relationship with Ryan and their son? Would she find the strength to address enduring complexities when her very future hung in the balance? Mia's heart raced, the voice droning on the other end morphing into an insistent echo that pulled her into a whirlpool of doubt. Jake. The name surfaced like a faded but searing scar, reminding her of the chaos he had once sown in her life. Every instinct urged her to hang up, to sever the ties that anchored her to a past that had only brought heartache. Yet, curiosity, mixed with an unwillingness to be a prisoner of her fears, kept her rooted in place. "Mia?" he pressed, a hint of urgency threading through his tone. "We need to talk about Dan." The mention of her son jolted her upright. She could almost sense Ryan across the room, his attention divided between his newly found role as a father and the emotional turbulence threatening to chisel away their hard-won progress. Mia felt flanked, caught in the crossfire of her responsibility to Dan and the resurrecting shadows of her past. The temptation to refuse him, to shield her newfound sense of self from this impending storm, surged within her. "What's there to talk about?" she challenged, her voice firmer than she felt. "Everything. I have questions about our arrangements. I want to make sure Dan's needs are being met," Jake continued, each syllable cutting through her resolve. Unbelievably, she recognized a flicker of compassion in his words, albeit tangled within layers of resentment. Just a week ago, her greatest concern was Ryan's potential betrayal. Now, the specter of Jake loomed larger, sowing seeds of confusion that uprooted her attempts at clarity. "What happened to you may be irrelevant now," she managed, steeling her thoughts against the memories of past grievances. "I'm doing what's best for him. This is my priority now." "Let us talk face to face," Jake insisted, and hesitation washed over Mia. Familiar anger collided with self-assuredness. A confrontation with Jake could unfold into chaos, but the risk of festering questions urged her toward clarity. "If I agree to meet, it's only to discuss Dan," she stated, a cold clarity edging her tone. "No empty promises or hollow discussions." "Fair enough. Just give me a time." Canceling their call, Mia dropped her phone onto the counter in a daze, trying to untangle her emotions. How would she ever find her footing between an ex who still wielded influence and an uncertain co-parenting situation with Ryan? Did Ryan really mean it when he talked about commitment? She looked up, and to her surprise, Ryan stood at the entrance, a watchful flicker in his eyes. "I heard part of that," he admitted, gentle yet insistent. What did he want? The weight of her decision pressed down like dozens of bricks, she felt exposed without her walls. She had to play this carefully both for Dan's sake and for the stability of her newly forming partnership with Ryan. Tension tangled within her as she confronted her growing feelings for Ryan, balanced against the looming specter of reinvigorated chaos. "About Dan," she said slowly. "He's demanding we meet." Ryan's expression hardened momentarily, yet there was an understanding that silenced the room. It felt like a shared burden, a recognition that testing their bond had become essential. "Are you okay with that?" he asked, his tone controlled as he took a step closer. Mia caught her breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, but I have to face this." There was a shared acceptance in their gaze, yet an unspoken challenge lingered. Ryan's commitment was earnest, but how far would he be willing to go when confronted with tangible reminders of Mia's past? "Let me be there with you," Ryan suggested, the softness in his tone hinting at a deeper intention to stand by her side. She hesitated, sparks of resolve flickering and challenging each other within her. Could she really let him in to confront one of her demons? Or would that reveal a vulnerability too haunting to withstand? With every step they took, the foundations felt increasingly precarious. Tomorrow loomed with the promise of confrontation. The question pulsing inside her was relentless. Would her acceptance of the past lead her toward a solid future, or would it fracture the delicate equilibrium she and Ryan had begun to build? The air thickened with a mixture of anxiety and determination. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia understood that the forthcoming meeting would set the tone for all that lay ahead, both with Jake and Ryan. The taste of uncertainty hung bitter on her tongue, as the intoxicating possibilities of reconciliation danced just beyond reach. Would she claim the strength to forge ahead, or would fear pull her back into the shadows of the past? Mia paced her living room, the weight of the yesterday's revelations gnawing at her mind. Dawn light filtered through the curtains, casting stripes across the floor, each beam a line she felt tethered to, marking time until the inevitable meeting with Jake. She knew deep down that confronting him was more than just about Dan. It was a reckoning, one that would either solidify her independence or drag her back into chaos. As she prepared herself, steeling her thoughts, her mind drifted to Ryan. His presence no longer felt like a safety net but a challenge, a reminder that her choices mattered beyond her own. He had stepped up as a partner, a father figure, embracing her struggles, but would he still feel that way once Jake re-entered the picture? Mia swallowed hard, placing her hand against her heart, urging herself to calm down. "Focus," she murmured, shaking her head as if to rattle loose the uncertainty. She knew she needed clarity. With Jake potentially demanding explanations, she would have to confront not just him, but the fears and self-doubts that flickered to life any time she thought of her past. The preparations brought an unexpected realization: she was no longer merely reactive. Mia began compiling her thoughts, jotting them down on a notepad. Specific questions lodged in her mind, like arrows aimed at targets. Why did he want to meet? Wasn't it enough that she was raising Dan without his toxic influence? Determined to avoid the emotional landmines Jake had previously laid, she structured her approach for the meeting. She focused on what Dan needed, the kinds of conversations the boy would need to have about his father, and how she could effectively communicate those needs to Jake. In the unfolding chaos, Mia felt a sense of purpose blossoming within her. Issues of unresolved anger lay heavy, but this time she would not allow them to dictate the tone of the conversation. She would use her voice not just for defense, but as a declaration of her agency. Each word she wrote felt like taking ownership of her narrative, one that had been stolen away for far too long. With her notes in hand, Mia prepared breakfast for Dan and Ryan, the warmth of family enveloping her, shadowing her nerves. Downstairs, the bubbling energy of their routine anchored her. Dan dashed around setting up his toys, the innocence of childhood radiating comfort. Ryan, with his reassuring smile and gentle nature, washed dishes, humming softly, carving sanctuary from the tension that lay just ahead. Mia watched them, pinching the edge of her written notes, grappling with the contradiction of strength and vulnerability. "I need to talk to you," she said to Ryan, pulling him aside, noting he sensed the weight of her deliberation. Ryan turned his full attention to her, his brows furrowing slightly as he braced himself for more than just small talk. "What's on your mind?" Mia brushed a hand through her hair, grounding herself. "Jake's looking to meet about Dan. I'm going in there to talk it over, but I need you to understand the conversation won't be about us. It's about making sure Dan's best interests are at heart." His expression remained steady, charged with empowerment. "I'll be there with you, for whatever you decide," he affirmed. Mia appreciated his strength and the veil of support he offered. But how much of this meeting would reveal the depth of her connection with Ryan or her fears of losing it? Would she be able to walk the tightrope of co-parenting while satiating her hunger for security? As she stepped back into the living room, preparing for the day ahead with its looming test, Mia felt the terrain beneath her shift uncomfortably. The confrontation might call for more than just navigating co-parenting, it could define the very essence of her self-worth. Then, a text notification startled her. Jake had sent the details for their meeting. The weight of his request echoed ominously in her mind, as dread mingled with resolve. Tomorrow would test her resolve, but it would also be a defining moment. Confidence or chaos, she thought, drawing in a sharp breath. The decision was hers to make. But could she navigate through the emotional minefield without losing herself again? She had taken pivotal steps forward, and yet, this moment could send her spiraling back. The door to the living room creaked open, and Mia snapped her attention to Ryan standing alert. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, concern lacing his words. "Ready as I'll ever be," Mia replied, fortifying herself against the imminent storm. The balance of her past and future lay teetering before her, waiting for her to take the leap. Tomorrow wasn't just another day, it was a threshold into the unknown. The day had arrived, and Mia's heart thrummed in sync with the ticking clock that echoed through her home. Each chime felt like a reminder, a countdown to the pivotal confrontation with Jake. She sipped her coffee in a desperate attempt to calm her nerves, the bitter taste contrasting sharply with the sweet memories of the morning she had spent with Ryan and Dan. A sense of unease washed over her, urging her to focus. She pulled out her notepad, flipping through the pages covered in her precise handwriting. Every line she had written was a potential lifeline, guiding her through the emotional storm she anticipated. The focus sharpened, she would not be ensnared by Jake's manipulative tactics. What was it that Dan truly needed? The answer needed to be crystal clear in her own mind. Mia's inside squirmed as she considered Jake's capabilities. He could charm with a smile and wreak havoc with words. He had a way of wielding his power, swaying narratives to fit his agenda. But she was no longer the girl he left adrift. She had learned, grown, and become a mother capable of protecting her child from the chaos that once dictated her life. Breakfast was a flurry of activity. Dan, in all of his 7-year-old enthusiasm, bounced around the kitchen asking questions about dinosaurs and space. Ryan helped him, amplifying the delight in the air. It was a beautiful facade against the backdrop of anxiety that built within Mia. She couldn't allow herself to falter. This meeting was for Dan's future. As he detailed the latest dinosaur he had discovered, Mia pondered how she could shield his innocent world from the impending turbulence. After breakfast, she took a moment to breathe. Mia looked in the mirror, searching for the resolve she needed. The reflection staring back was one of uncertainty, yet beneath it lay fierce determination. A kinship with that woman emerged. She owed it to her son to command the narrative of their story. An hour later, Ryan eased her tension with a soft squeeze of her shoulder as they stepped out the door. "You're ready for this," he whispered, his voice low and confident. His faith in her ignited something deep within. The support made her feel slightly less precarious as she stepped into the bright sunlight. The drive felt endless, though only a few blocks separated them from Jake's office. Each traffic light was agonizingly slow, a metaphorical representation of the dread coiling in her stomach. She leaned against the window, watching the world go by, caught between her past, present, and future. As they parked, Mia's breath quickened. It wasn't simply about confronting Jake, it was about laying bare her new identity. With Ryan at her side, she felt an unexpected empowerment coursing through her veins. Together they felt formidable, not just as a couple, but as partners in the shared pursuit of Dan's well-being. Upon entering the office, the sterile ambience was suffocating. The receptionist gave a barely concealed glance, perhaps sensing the weight of the impending conversation. When Jake entered, he exuded an uncomfortable confidence, that same charm she had once found captivating. But this time, Mia steeled herself against the tide. "Thanks for coming," he said smoothly, a hint of feigned concern creasing his brow. The contrast between the warmth he projected and the chill coursing through her made it clear, he intended to sway the conversation in his favor. Taking a deep breath, Mia met his gaze boldly. "I want to focus on Dan, Jake. Let us be clear about that." The room hung in suspense as his demeanor shifted. The mind games she had been bracing for began to coalesce, but instead of retreating, as she might have done in the past, she stood her ground. This meeting was hers to steer, and she was prepared to navigate. As Jake began to speak, Mia sensed that this would not simply determine their co-parenting arrangements. This was about reclaiming her narrative and possibly facing truths about herself that had remained buried. The stakes were higher than she had ever anticipated her emotional strength would be tested at every turn. "Have you really thought this through?" he asked, eyes narrowing. Mia clenched her fists, pushing back the doubts, and responded with a steady voice, "What I've thought through is all that I've sacrificed to keep Dan safe and happy." As they delved into the discussion, Mia realized that her journey was only just beginning. The tug-of-war within her was becoming increasingly complex, a tapestry of past decisions interwoven with present realities. She was prepared to confront not only Jake but also the remnants of her old self that still clung to the shadows. But as the conversation intensified, she sensed an impending wave of realization about what Jake wasn't saying, a revelation about her own strength that could define how she moved forward, forever altering her life's path and those she loved most. Just as she began to uncover the hidden layers, Jake leaned in slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know everything, Mia. There are things about your life that might change your perspective completely." In that moment, the air crackled with uncertainty. What secrets lay beneath the surface, threatening to upend everything she thought she understood? A moment stretched like an eternity, and Mia felt the weight of his insinuation like a rock sinking in her stomach. The casual menace of his words rippled through her. What could he possibly know that she didn't? The realization that Jake had been lurking in her shadows, possibly even gathering evidence against her, sent shards of panic piercing through her resolve. Her heart raced. Did he hold pieces of her life she had tucked away, thinking them thoroughly buried? The adrenaline surged within, mingling with the fury of being cornered. She had carved out a new life, and the thought of Jake tearing at the seams made her instinctively tighten her grip on the chair's armrest. "Are you threatening me, Jake?" she managed to ask, her voice steadier than she felt. He offered a slight grin, a knowing smirk that only fueled her determination. "I'm just suggesting you might want to understand the full context. Sometimes the past has a funny way of catching up with you." The conversation twisted, and Mia's thoughts wrestled with her emotions. It was one thing to battle to keep her son safe from Jake's manipulation, but throwing in mystery and threats added another layer of anxiety. "What do you know about me?" Refocusing, she zeroed in on the task. She couldn't allow him to divert her attention. "I know enough to make you reconsider your choices," he replied, but she could see the subtle flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Perhaps he was less confident than he tried to portray. The clock on the wall ticked, each sound a reminder that time was slipping away. Mia felt her resolve harden. She had every intention of facing whatever he had to throw at her, but not at the cost of Dan's well-being. This meeting had to end with her voice ringing louder than Jake's acidic barbs. As they spoke, Mia positioned herself in a way to steer the conversation back toward Dan, establishing boundaries she previously had allowed to be blurred. The discussion drifted into their co-parenting logistics, a tactic as she planned her next move, revealing her strategic mind. If she could lay down clear terms about Dan's visits, education decisions, and care, it would fortify her position as the primary protector. But as she laid out her proposals, something in her mind cracked open. She finally understood the true power she held, the power of advocacy for her son. The path she had paved over the years to reclaim her life had been intricately designed not just for herself, but also for Dan. That realization fortified the lines etched in her notepad, strong enough to stand against Jake's turbulent past. Mia observed the subtle shifts in Jake's demeanor as she articulated her vision for their son. Each argument she presented was empowered by unwavering conviction, breaking through the fog he seemed to cast. She could sense his attention wavering under the weight of her renewed clarity. But Jake was more than just a foe, he represented fragments of her past she had fought to escape. With every confident word she spoke about Dan, Mia progressively confronted not only the external conflict but the internal battles she had long kept dormant. Just when she thought they had reached a relatively civil ground, a rare moment of compromise, Jake turned once more, his eyes locking onto hers with a hint of challenge. But can you keep everything intact, Mia? Did you really think you could outrun your past? The underlying threat unfurled across the room. It felt as if the rafters echoed her inner turmoil, the unresolved fears rising again. Was she indeed running from something or someone that could shatter her carefully constructed reality? The tension in the air thickened. She had to confront Jake with everything she had, but a deeper truth stirred within her. What if her past was more intertwined with her present than she realized? What if this confrontation held the key not just to Dan's welfare but to an understanding of her own potential? It all hinged on how she responded, and the crossroads of her integrity felt ominously close. Just before she opened her mouth to reveal her strategy, ready to dismantle the facade he wore, a reflection of her own past flickered through her thoughts. It was the moment that could either solidify her path forward or unravel it entirely. Mia, Jake coaxed, leaning forward as if sensing the pivotal moment before them. There are things about us, about how we came to be, that you have yet to confront. This isn't just about Dan. The tension reached a fever pitch as her mind raced, caught between the life she'd built and the shadows of their shared history waiting to emerge. Would she grasp the reins of the conversation or plunge deeper into the chaos Jake would inevitably unleash? Mia's breath caught as she fought against the swirling tempest of emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Each word he spoke was a sledgehammer against her defenses, forcing her to confront memories she had worked diligently to bury. She felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. Did she really think she could erase her connection to Jake? It was as if he had slid beneath her skin, burrowing into her identity, threatening to pull her back into a realm of confusion and fear. Jake, it's been a long time since we've had anything resembling a partnership, she countered, struggling to tighten her focus around the meeting's purpose. But you need to understand, our son is my priority. Whatever you think you have on me won't change that. His eyes narrowed in response, a mixture of intrigue and calculation flickering across his face. Is that really true? You act like you're holding all the cards, but we both know how things can spiral out of control. A charged silence ensued as Mia weighed his insinuation. Could he somehow provoke new chaos in her orderly life? The mere thought sent a ripple of alarm through her, but it was her responsibility to remain steady for Dan. Tremors of doubt flared within, testing the boundaries of her carefully constructed confidence. Yet, amidst those tremors, resilience emerged, a solid belief that she had earned a second chance at being a great mother and person. With forceful determination, she straightened in her seat, deploying her careful strategy. I'm not your puppet anymore, Jake. I have worked hard to establish a life for Dan, and I won't let you undermine it. Mia felt a shift in the atmosphere as she asserted herself. The light in Jake's eyes dimmed slightly, revealing a crack in his bravado. Perhaps he hadn't anticipated her fierce defense. But he quickly masked it, donning an expression steeped in arrogance. You really think you can keep me out of Dan's life? That your little bubble can withstand any storm? Her resolve solidified further, memories of her struggles fusing into a protective aura. The years spent rebuilding herself after their chaotic relationship had yielded a power she had yet to fully utilize. I'm not afraid of storms, Jake. I've weathered them before and emerged stronger. I'll fight for what's best for Dan, and that means setting boundaries. You either respect them or face the consequences. A nonchalant chuckle escaped him, but beneath it lingered uncertainty. Consequences? That's a big word for someone made of glass. The metaphor struck Mia with unexpected clarity. She was indeed fragile from the countless battles she'd fought, but now, resilience seeped into her resolve, forging a new layer of grit. Internal strength burgeoned as she realized that being a single mother had transformed her in ways Jake could never comprehend. Inside, a fire ignited as her mind spun with possibilities. If Jake was leveraging threats, perhaps she could flip the narrative. A plan formed, bringing together her identity as a capable mother and her continued evolution. She could not only protect Dan, she could become an unstoppable force advocating for their future. "Consider this," she said, her tone icy with finality. "If you think you can intimidate me, you'd be gravely mistaken. I'm done negotiating from a place of fear." Jake's expression shifted from amusement to incredulity, clearly taken aback by her confident stance. Mia saw an opportunity in his disbelief, a fleeting second where she could deepen their dialogue, drawing him into a reflection on their shared past. "What do you really want to accomplish here, Jake? Because it's not only about posturing. Deep down, do you want to be a part of Dan's life, or are you just trying to exert control?" As she posed the question, Mia felt empowered by her own introspection. The mention of control hung heavy in the air, and she could almost sense Jake grappling with the perception of himself as a father. Would he take the bait, or would he retreat into defensiveness? The moment lingered, charged with electric tension, both a confrontation and a shared history. In the hushed space between them, the ghosts of their past beckoned, waiting to reveal secrets that could reshape the future. Could Mia unlock a part of Jake that still cared for their son, or was she merely stirring a sleeping beast? As time inched forward, the weight of those lingering questions etched deeper into Mia's mind. A realization dawned as she prepared for whatever revelation lay ahead. The path unfolding was not just one about Dan, it was also about uncovering her own hidden talents in navigating this treacherous arena of motherhood and co-parenting. "Mia," Jake said slowly, a new vulnerability in his voice, "if you want to get into the depths of our past, then we really need to talk about what happened that night." The air crackled with anticipation. The decisions looming ahead felt monumental, thick with the possibility of transformation, each choice leading them closer to the inevitable truth that could alter everything. Mia felt her heart hammering in her chest, each thud resonating with an acutely deep awareness of the stakes that had just risen immeasurably. The night Jake referenced was one that had haunted her, a night steeped in regret, confusion, and the painful origins of their unraveling relationship. Yet here she was, tethered to that time but also standing firmly in the present, ready to confront not just Jake but everything he represented. "Go on," she said, keeping her voice steady despite the tremor inside her. "What happened that night has shaped more than just you and me, it's shaped how I've fought to raise Danny to be better than the shadows of our past." The tension hung in the air as Jake seemed to weigh his response. He shifted slightly, a flicker of vulnerability momentarily breaking through his previously stable facade. "You think I don't know that? You think I wanted it to be this way?" The admission rolled off his tongue, an inflection of accountability that Mia wasn't prepared for. "It wasn't just about you," she countered, fire igniting within her. "Any choices you made reflected on me and on our son. If you suddenly want to step back into our lives, you need to understand that I will not allow Dan to be a pawn in your mind games. Your past might not leave my memory, but I also won't let it dictate our future." A swirl of emotions painted Jake's expression, and for the first time, Mia detected hints of regret beneath layers of bravado. But would that be enough to foster change? Doubt flickered momentarily, but Mia fortified herself with the knowledge of the life she had built. Every single day had been a carving of strength that pointed toward resilience. "Okay, let's talk about it," he finally said, his tone shifting, this time almost conciliatory. "But if I don't know where we stand and how you truly feel about it all, I won't be involved in this at all. You talk about protection and boundaries, but did you ever consider the reasons why I did what I did?" His challenge ignited a spark of anger in her. The power she held at that moment anchored her thoughts. She was not just mouthing platitudes, she was defending her son's future. "You said you wanted to be involved. If you mean that, show it," she replied, matching his gaze. "Meet me halfway. This is about co-parenting. Do you understand the kind of commitment that demands?" He leaned back in his chair, a gesture revealing both defensiveness and intrigue. "I do, but past decisions sometimes come with unforeseen consequences. Can you trust me, knowing what I represent?" "Trust. The word hung between them, a fragile vessel that could either hold water or shatter upon impact. Mia understood how monumental this choice was, the act of trusting Jake while also fighting for her autonomy and Dan's safety. The very essence of her growth crystallized with that realization. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly," she countered, regaining momentum. "I'm asking for a clear commitment, a promise that your actions will align with what is best for Danny." Jake studied her, the silence around them thickening as he gauged his next move. Finally, he sighed, the weight of their shared past palpable. "All right," he relented, as if the battle had taken more out of him than he anticipated. "I can work on that. But you need to meet me halfway." A rush of adrenaline coursed through Mia. "Then let's lay the groundwork now. We set expectations, terms of visitation, and I need to know you're willing to be consistent. That means regular communication. Are you prepared for that?" "I can do that," he nodded, albeit cautiously, as if testing the waters. "But let us not forget, if you ever need to take a step back, I'm still Dan's father. I will always be in the periphery." A finality swirled into the atmosphere as Mia felt the anticipation of what this revelation could mean for them moving forward. Taking a deep breath, she leaned in, softened her tone, and locked her gaze with Jake's. "Then let's forge a path that honors his needs first." It was establishing a fragile peace, yet Mia felt a subtle understanding forming, as if stepping out of the chaos that had once defined them. The path ahead felt like walking blindfolded, but paired with Ryan, she gained assurance against the uncertainty. By focusing on Dan, she showed both men that her love for their son superseded all looming threats from her past. "But understand this, respect comes from the history that fuels us. If you so much as waver, I will not hesitate to protect my son from your second-guessing," she added firmly, the clarity of her vision for their son shining brightly across her intentions. As Jake's expression settled into reluctant acceptance, Mia marveled at her own personal transformation. She had circled back to her starting point, but she held more than just a fragile stance. She enjoyed a solid foundation built upon hard-won lessons. Mia left the meeting feeling a complexity of emotions but also exhilaration. She had faced the shadows of her past without faltering, capturing her narrative in ways that placed the needs of her child at center stage. There was no doubt that the road ahead would require equal parts strategy and vulnerability, but Mia was no longer afraid. That confrontation had been a portal to growth, her own and her newfound ability to shape the narrative that lay before her. Through the chaos, she had emerged a leader, ready to advocate fiercely for Dan's future while standing steadfast beside Ryan. The gravity of her responsibility felt less burdensome, it was invigorating. As she stepped back into the sunlight outside, the warmth on her skin was a stark reminder of what lay ahead. With clarity in her heart and a newfound determination shining in her eyes, she truly felt like she could face anything, even the remnants of uncertainty with Jake looming over their interactions. Her life was her craft, and she would shape it meticulously. Tomorrow would surely bring unforeseen challenges, but Mia was now more than a survivor. She was a protector, a visionary, and ultimately, herself. She would nurture this new chapter, paving the way for a brighter, safer future for her son and perhaps for herself, too. Trusting in her newfound strength, she would continue to progress onward. Life as a single mom was undeniably complicated, but with every step, she embraced the empowering journey of self-discovery and growth, positioning herself solidly on ground that felt increasingly secure. The next stage awaited to unfold, and Mia was ready for it all. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for these emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Mia's journey. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.